Welcome to Cultural Connections Lab. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Forbes. We are here to talk with educational professionals around the world to impact and influence the education system as we focus on cultural connections and the education of multilingual, diverse students. We're excited to have you join us today, and we sincerely hope that you enjoy the show.
Are you ready to take your school district to new heights? Introducing EduSkills, the leading software as a service platform for Title III and multilingual support in education. At EduSkills, we understand the importance of equitable education and empowering multilingual learners to thrive in today's classrooms. Our cutting-edge technology provides school districts across the nation with the tools they need to enhance language acquisition, foster inclusivity, and improve academic outcomes. With seamless implementation and comprehensive support, EduSkills ensures a smooth transition for your district, empowering educators to provide targeted instruction and personalized support. So why wait? Unlock the potential of your school district today with EduSkills. Visit our website at eduskillsllc.com or call us now at 405-879-9898 to schedule a demo. EduSkills, transforming education one student at a time.
Welcome to another podcast episode with myself, your host, Dr. Kelly Forbes, and I am excited to be here today with a new friend of mine, someone who I had the pleasure of meeting not too long ago at the COCABE, the Colorado Association for Bilingual Education Conference. And I'd like to introduce to all of our amazing listeners out there, we have Suzie Mosqueda. Suzie is an entrepreneur, business owner, transformational speaker, and a bestseller author. She is the CEO and founder of the RTE Academy, a coaching program designed to strategically transform the lives of successful women who feel unworthy. As a survivor, or she likes to call herself, thriver of multiple illnesses, including cancer and over 5 abdominal surgeries, she found the way out of societal misery. Suzie's passion and calling is to share her knowledge with women to elevate their identity, elevate their worth. I know there is more to what the eye and even imagination can perceive, she expresses. This belief has taken her from having no shoes and working in the fields of Mexico to an unstoppable, forward, resilient visionary. She asks the question, do you want to gain your worth back? And she talks about some techniques that we will discuss further in this episode today. But she also says, I guide women entrepreneurs, executives, business owners, authors to elevate their identity, elevate their worth by dissolving their inner critic and cultivating a resilient core courage. Listeners, a todos, gracias por estar aquí, and a big welcome to Suzie Mosqueda. How are
Oh
you?
my gosh, thank you so much. That's an amazing introduction. I feel so flattered. Thank you.
Well, hey, we are truly the flattered ones to have you here, and I'm really thankful that you. And I just want to share this to anyone else who's out there listening. If you want to be on this podcast, we know people, we meet people, but also come up and ask us. And so I had the honor and the privilege truly to get to meet you at the Colorado Association for Bilingual Education Conference. And it was just such a true honor and pleasure to get to meet you. And then we shared information about the podcast, and you came up and asked, would it be possible to participate in this? And so thank you for being bold. Thank you for coming up, and thank you for adding to our conversation with all of our listeners. I am so genuinely excited to get to learn more about you today.
Thank you so much. You know, that day I was so drawn to you, and I'm like, we need to connect. We have a similar mission in mind of impacting people, and especially youth, being a former teacher of 20 plus years. And I'm like, I'm in. So thank you for accepting me to be here and opening the door.
No, I think this is really fantastic, and I was drawn to you as well. And you also brought up some amazing students that I got to meet. And I feel like, whenever you have the students as your focus and the forefront of your mind and all that you do, you will always therefore make better, more informed decisions, because it really is all about our students. And we were talking about the I believe that our session that we were in was called Building Bridges, and it was
Yes.
trying to cultivate, school culture with cultural proficiency. And so I think that we definitely have a lot in common in that mission and in that vision as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going back to mentioning how I bring students to some of these either district related or education related or business conferences, it's been a passion of mine, and I think it's part of my life calling to expose or have them have the exposure to a variety of opportunities and scenarios so they can see themselves at a higher, level, and not just limited to the 9 to 5 or whatever, but they can be doing way bigger things.
I think that's so important, and I really appreciate the fact that you brought the students. I've never seen anyone do that. I have done that one time before,
Uh-huh.
whenever I had students of my own, and it was a really it was a great experience, and it allowed for just a lot of reflection on my part as being the educator, and how do I allow exposure and opportunities to students, like you just said, to see themselves at a higher level doing something that we know that we need our students to come back and to continue this mission and vision whenever you and I
Mhm.
win the lottery and, retire or anything anything like that.
I
But,
love the idea of winning the lottery.
I don't think I'll ever stop in this work though. I love it so much, but it really is important for us to be able to have our students there connected also. Yeah, I thought that was
Absolutely.
fantastic.
So ever since I started my journey of personal development and whatnot, and really reconnecting with myself, obviously I was still being a teacher because it's been years since I started this path, and I totally saw how I could incorporate all of these knowledge into my classroom with the students K through fifth grade.
Mhm.
It was not only, only fifth grade, but it was all the way across. I was able to modify all the techniques and whatnot and knowledge that I have acquired throughout the years. And then through my journey, I learned that even myself, being a Latina who comes from a little tiny town, I had not been having exposure to the wide and broad opportunities and possibilities out there in the world.
Mhm.
When I started to get involved more into these conferences and getting connected and developing wealthy relationships with people who have done amazing things, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can. I started seeing myself there, and I was like, I wonder if I bring my students here, what would the impact be
Oh, wow.
to their mindset, to their whole being, to their whole identity, to their future self? How is that going to shift for them, to approach, to pursue higher things,
Mhm.
And one of my students stays in my mind. She's like, Miss Susie, I think I want to start a business on cosmetics, like organic ones. And I'm like,
Amazing.
yes, that's the purpose.
Yes, exactly.
So I told her, Evelyn, yes, you can. I can help you. Let's do this. So we're still working on that, of course, as we go and whatnot. But up until now, if I call a parent, if I see an opportunity for my students, and I call a parent and student, hey, I'm attending this conference, like that day, technically it was like, oh, I need volunteers, we're going to be volunteering for this conference, who wants to come, hey, do you want to come? And right away, parents, yes, Miss Susie, let me tell Eli if he wants to go. And Eli is like, yes, Miss Susie, I'm on it. At what time are you picking me up?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. When did you first start doing that?
I think it's been now close to 6 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the first conferences was Kokabe and Koalas.
Okay.
Because I remember Ron Cabrera and Boris, I forgot his last name, approaching me, and they're like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm like, yeah, I'm empowering my youth.
Exactly. I love that so much. What is their feedback? afterwards? Like whenever you left that the last Kokabe conference, what were
Oh,
their thoughts
from Ron and the board,
from your students? Yeah,
or from my students.
from the students.
So this is part of the process of how I've done it previously when I was in the classroom. I would bring them to the conference, and one of the requirements was that after the conference, they were have a written piece as a reflection of what they've learned. What is it that they want to improve in their life according to what they lived or whatever? Incredible. There was Suri who was like, Miss Susie, thank you so much for this opportunity. Now I can see myself as a writer doing all of this impact on other people's life. And I think that having us over at the conference already gave me a lot of self-confidence to not be afraid to talk to people who seem to be way more powerful than me.
Mm. Mm.
Like things like that, that really brought tears to my eyes, and it was like, yes, thank you, God.
Wow. No, I love that. But I think it's interesting that they said who seem more powerful than me.
Yes,
That, that,
yes.
that.
Because even some of them were like, I was so afraid to talk to this person because I didn't know if I could. I'm like, talk to them like you talk to me, talk to them like you talk to any other friend.
Hmm.
Just approach them. You're gonna see they're gonna be accessible to you. Just do it.
We're all
Do it.
human,
And they
learning
would
and
be
growing
like, oh,
together.
I'm so nervous. I'm so this, I'm so that. I'm like, it's okay. I'm nervous too. Let's be nervous together, but let's do it.
You're such a good role model. Even for me, you're inspiring me because there are times, being vulnerable as an adult sometimes, you see people and meet people and think, oh my gosh, I could never talk to them. And if that's
Yes,
difficult for us, imagine what it's like for our students. And we're trying to really uplift the identities, the voices, the traditions, the heritage, the cultures of our students. And so putting them into the arena where they see themselves as the leaders, I think that is one of the most important things that we can do in education.
I absolutely agree. And another thing that actually has come out of those experiences is how we mainly see in these other roles uh, not very many people of color,
No,
and
never.
they would, within the classroom, you know how hard it is sometimes to have Latino students or from other cultures be participating because they feel that they're not worth enough, right?
Hmm.
To put out their word because they're going to make a mistake, because maybe what they're going to say is not as important or whatever it is. So, one of the conversations that I used to have in the classroom with my students, either age, was yes, maybe there is no one right there that looks like me, and I'm the only Latina in the room, but I make sure that people notices me because of who I am, and I make sure that I show up being the Mexicana with pride and with all the talents and with all the power and with all the abilities that I have. And I make sure that they notice that. I don't put myself down or bring myself down just because I am different within that environment. I make myself feel belong
Mm.
because I do.
I think that's a really important thing though, because you're assuming that. And sometimes it's so difficult to do, but you're being such an amazing example of respecting myself first, loving myself first. So
Yes.
therefore I can respect and love others. And I'm going to believe in myself so much that I'm not going to allow my own inner critic, like you say, my own inner saboteur. Your ego's not your amigo sometimes, right? And
Oh,
so
I love that.
it
Your
allows
ego
us
is
to
not
really
your amigo.
yeah, your ego's not your amigo, and that
You're
happens so
right.
often. Yes, exactly. I took that from someone who does Zumba workouts on YouTube, so I can't claim
Ah.
that as my own. But nevertheless, ego's not your amigo. It's not. It's really it's interesting though as we're talking about this because so what before I said like never do I hardly ever see anyone who is in leadership who is of color. And
Mhm.
so there and now of course I know that geographically within the nation that this can look very different for different reasons for
Totally.
how the pre-K through 12 system has really encouraged and supported all demographics represented within their local community. But then there were other areas where you see that the majority of the students are of color, or the majority of the students speak another language, and the majority of those students are Spanish speaking students. But then whenever you go to the school sites, your assistant principal and head principal are normally monolingual, monolithic in some
Yes.
ways, monocultural, and they
Mhm.
don't have those same backgrounds. And so I often pose and ask the question, it's not that we're not producing hundreds and hundreds of high school graduates who can go to
Mhm.
college. I mean, because we see them, we know the numbers, we know that they're in our schools, but why are they therefore not ever reflected? Typically, overall, I shouldn't say, never, but you
Right,
know what I
right,
mean. They're just
right.
hardly ever represented in those high leadership positions. And it
Yes,
really blows my mind.
yes. You know, Kelly, what I found out, if you allow me to share, throughout my teaching career and having the privilege, because I'm privileged, I consider myself an honor and blessed to have the opportunity to be in these environments where I can observe a lot of stuff. Um, I did observe that at such a young age, starting fourth grade and even younger, our students, especially Latino students, are starting to already feel ashamed of their identity,
Hmm.
and that builds up through the years, especially when it is not interrupted in a way that is like, okay, yes, I might not be a monolingual student or from the mainstream society or whatever necessarily, but I am very powerful, and I have the capability to do leadership stuff. And they don't see themselves in those roles at such a
Hmm.
young age. They don't. Um, Even within the classroom, I remember I always love to build a community that is very cohesive, very united, regardless of how many cultures are within my classroom. We are all resources of each
Hmm.
other, right? Um, but I did notice that a lot of our Latino, especially students, were like pulled themselves back from those higher responsibility roles. And I will always be like, no, you can. Let's do it. You can. I will always like push them. Andale, andale.
Yes.
Go for it. Do it. You got it. And the conversation was, like I said before, even though I don't see anybody like me in that room, I want you to make sure that you are the first one, because a lot of people are going to follow you.
Hmm.
The conversation was always like, you are a leader, each of
Hmm.
them. You are a leader with your unique and authentic abilities and talents and whatnot. You are a leader. So if we had more, environments like that throughout their schooling, career, or life journey, and, that would be, from what I saw and what I experienced and what I've seen, that would be a tremendous impact.
And everyone has a story whenever they themselves thought that they weren't going to be good enough, or thought that I don't know enough for that role. I'm not good enough for that. And we always we just sometimes we push we're our own worst enemies sometimes
I
in that
agree with
arena.
that. I call it, we are our worst bully.
Our worst. Yeah, that's so true. It's so true because there are many times, but then we need the people that are around us, though. And I guess that's what kind of makes it just more, just more transparent and just more human. It's just to
Yes,
say, like, hey, some of these people that have been in the highest positions that you can ever think of, they were also scared. But the difference is, though, is that they had someone right there along their side, encouraging them, pushing them, helping them, believing in them, and really
yes,
elevating their voice at the same time. That's what
totally.
our role is.
I absolutely agree with that, because I wouldn't be here if it wouldn't for, I call her my little hermanita, mi pequeña hermanita, because she's the biggest cheerleader that I have behind me when I feel, because I'm where I am and where we are, we're still, like you're saying, having some self doubts, or like, I'm not worth to be listened to, or whatever we're pursuing, right?
I still do all
And
that today.
Yes, it's a never end. And there is just, the beauty comes when you become resilient enough to say, okay, I'm feeling this way, but I'm still going to do it because I
Mhm.
know I can, or, self talk, really important. But this person has been a huge fan and supporter all the way since I began to pursuing my business career. And every time I feel a little bit down or whatever, I call her and she's like, "You got this. You have the talent. I mean, if you could see yourself and all the capacity that you have and all the amazing things that you can do, it would, I mean, you would believe it." I'm like, "Thank you. You're right."
It's it is nice to have those people that come back and remind us because sometimes again, you just feel like we're our own worst bullies, and
Mhm.
so that we just think like I don't know, like I'm not even like I don't know enough. Someone else knows more. Why would they listen to me? But then at the same
Yes.
time, that other person comes and they remind you of all the things that you have done, and they really ignite that fire. And so I think it's important for us to just like always be really rooted in the gratitude for the people that are
Yes.
around us. And I have this theory though that if we just continue to try to make other people's dreams come true, and if we're all trying to make someone else's dream come true and trying to help them, well, then
Mhm.
we're therefore really helping ourselves having our dreams come true at the same time because we're all collectively helping each other in that way. Collective impact.
Absolutely. No kidding. And throughout that journey and what I've learned as a teacher and as a coach, it's like you're not only sharing your knowledge and teaching it and encouraging people, but you're also auto reflecting all the time. And therefore, like you're saying, you are also growing.
I love it so much. And you keep talking about like this journey, like we're alluding to a journey. I really want to hear about your journey. I know that just from reading your bio and having met you, you have a whole lot of experiences that have allowed you to be the person who you are today. Some of those are probably great experiences, and other ones maybe some more difficult experiences. And you are a thriver and a visionary. And so I really want to hear about your journey, um, your how you started in not just the profession, but in life, like your life journey, but then
Right.
within this profession though. And so along with that journey, what was that culturally proficient journey as well as you were learning about the role of culture in not only you, but what that looked like in society and what those impacts were. Things that can be really good for our other listeners and especially educators to know and to understand as they're in front of amazing little humans every single day that might have a very similar story.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. There are multiple parts to the question you just
Yes.
asked me. So I'm going to try to remember all of them.
Take at it. No, just go at it as you can. Go at it as you can. It's a loaded
So,
question. A lot.
my journey started over in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is close to Mexico City. I
Mm-hmm.
was born and raised there until I was around 15. I was a teenager. And I remember growing up as a little girl, there were a lot of amazing stories. I had an amazing childhood, jumping in the water barefooted and, you know, uh, playing with dirt and rocks and whatnot because I didn't have toys. And they're barefooted because sometimes I didn't have shoes.
Mm.
It was really hard in the house as far as having all the basic needs needed. However, my mom, my tias, and all of them were an amazing role for me, role models, because all of them have such a resilient, strong personality and character that even though they don't have all the resources that I have now in my life, they came, they became amazing cooks, amazing, I would call them chefs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Amazing clothes designers,
Yeah.
amazing mentors and stuff. I use this analogy with one of my aunts because she actually recreated one of my cousin's quinceañera dress for her little 2 year old granddaughter, like the exact thing.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, oh my gosh, she could be in Paris having her fashion show and whatnot with everything that she does.
Yeah, that's so true. You're exactly right.
So the thing is that she didn't have the resources to pursue that, right? Or
Right.
maybe she didn't see herself there because she was not exposed to that environment. But I take that in my heart because ever since I was a little girl working in the fields, prepping or harvesting cucumber or whatever, and having pain on my back and carrying that huge sack of cucumbers and whatnot, I knew there was something else out there for me, something bigger, something that I didn't even know what it was, but there was. And one of the things that I've learned throughout this journey of life is that when we are young and little is when we really know who we are, because we are still connected to our authenticity.
Hmm.
So I carried that with me. I've carried it throughout my life. However, life happens.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And sometimes it happens a lot and fast and hard.
Yes. So as I migrated to the United States, and I was so excited because I was finally coming or getting into the land of opportunities. My actual path was interrupted with all these experiences of being in a toxic relationship
Hmm.
where I had two beautiful children that I adore dearly. They're already young adults, but they're my little niños para mí. So,
Siempre.
and throughout that experience and my authenticity and my core identity fighting to like really be prevail regardless of, I encounter myself to be a cancer survivor, ulcerative colitis, and then intestine perforation. And that's when I got all my abdominal surgeries and whatnot.
Wow.
And later on, I also had to have my colon removed.
Oh my
So
goodness.
all of those things. So one of the biggest epiphanies that I had or breaking point in my life was when my intestine was perforated, because throughout our lives, like I said, when we're little, we're always aware of all the signs and we're excited about it and why not. But then we lose ourselves. So when I was in the hospital that year, I had no choice but not to be a mom, not to be a sister, not to be even a woman, not to be any external labels that were defining me. I had to just be there and really listen to the divine, to God, whatever you believe in. On this is not where you are gonna be. You need to move on, move out of this toxic relationship. This we're gonna show you who you really are and reconnect you back and whatnot. However, in our daily busy lives, if that wouldn't happen to me, I would probably be still in the same toxic relationship, even with myself. Like we were
Hmm.
saying before, we are a worst bully, right? And we are not aware of it sometimes. Most of the time, we're not aware of it because these collective virus of negativity and putting people down, it's so engraved into us that sometimes we don't notice we are doing it even in jokes or through songs or anything. So that was my breaking point, and that's when I started my journey in personal development and reconnected with my inner self. So up until throughout that phase in my life and up until now, I'm still growing, right? The more you know, the less you know.
I often joke that it's like Socrates. All I know is I know nothing. That's
Exactly. I
yeah.
totally. So I've been also, since we are not only in a country but in a world where cultures are intertwined with each other, interacting all the time. I mean, we how could we avoid all of that? We can't. Social media, we have the airplanes now since a little while ago and whatnot. So I've become so multicultural through this journey because I'm fascinated with the stories and the patterns and whatnot that all of the cultures have in common. And that ultimately we are just spiritual beings, humans, having an experience in life. But we have so much in common, so much. Not only that we smile almost similarly, right? Or cry or whatever. The emotions, the thing that your thoughts and whatever diet you have, not only eating diet, but also like what you listen to, what you say, what you think, your actions are, and whatnot. They're very similar and are actually impacted by technically the same factors:
Mm-hmm.
people around you, the environment, your culture, and so on, and whatever you're identifying yourself with. So, up until now, I would say I have friends from a lot of places around the world, and I feel so lucky and blessed to get to interact with them and share our stories, our lives. I always say stories connect souls. So to me, all of us are souls on earth, trying to connect with our happiness, which is innate in us.
And we will be right back. Are you ready to take your K through 12 multilingual programs to new heights? Look no further than the experts at Kelly B's Consulting. We're not just consultants, we're partners in education, with a passion for empowering students and enriching your classrooms. At Kelly B's Consulting, we understand the unique cultural and linguistic needs of your diverse student population. Our team of experienced educators will work alongside you, tailoring strategies that transform your multilingual programs. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Visit www.kellybsconsultingllc.com today to learn more and schedule your consultation. Kelly B's Consulting, shaping the future of K through 12 multilingual education across the nation. Your success is our commitment. Contact us now and let's start building a brighter tomorrow together. And now, back to the show.
I love how you make us remember that, like, it really is nothing to do with all of the outside labels that we have. It's really about who we are internally. It's about our soul, about, that diet that you talk about not just a food diet, but what do I allow myself to listen to? Do I
Mhm.
find myself, making jokes that are really microaggression and not really
Exactly.
understanding what I'm saying? And how does what I say constantly impact my behavior and my actions and who I am? And once we really do realize how interconnected we are through culture, through society, through just science, how our bodies work and the function and everything. Like you were saying, like we all smile in the same language. We all
Yes,
cry whenever things are sad. But we are so interconnected, whether you believe it or not, or like it or not. I mean, this is like what I do over here impacts the other side of the universe. What I do right now can impact you, and we have to understand how united we are, and that through that we do get to explore other diversities and see the beauty of that. And then that's where we get to enrich our lives even further, is by listening, to really seek to understand, learning from others, and being true to who we are without any other label that someone else maybe gave us.
absolutely. Yes. And that was one of the things, I would say the main thing that I devoted myself to inculcate or show my students.
Now, so here in Oklahoma, we have a new leader for our Latino Community Development Agency. And I
Oh,
was just
nice.
reading an article. Yes, he's really, really wonderful, and I'm very excited for his leadership. Um, but he made a comment in the article that sometimes, and he's from a Spanish-speaking country, and I don't want to missay, but I do believe that he is he's originally from Mexico, or his
Okay.
heritage is from Mexico. And so, if you're listening and I'm incorrect, please forgive me if I misspoke. Um, but anyhow, with that being said, he said in the article, he had mentioned that in our culture, it's hard for us to sometimes brag about ourselves, and to say, but so listening to your story and making these connections, how your ego isn't always your amigo, and we don't always see ourselves in these spaces, or we don't see ourselves in leadership. And then we physically, whenever we're actually looking at the people who are in those roles in leadership, they do not look like the students overall.
Mm-hmm.
They don't speak the same language. They don't understand the culture. You can't separate culture and language. There's so much, but we need,
Yes.
again, and this is coming from someone who, I'm the only Spanish speaker in my family. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I do not have these experiences myself. I'm just grateful to be able to participate in a culture and to be allowed into that culture. And so I'm always so thankful and grateful. But that's where I feel like my excitement and my passion and kind of my advocacy comes into play, is because I want to be able to see the students that I had, my newcomer students. I want to see them as the principal. I want to see them as the instructional leadership director. I want to see them as the superintendent. And I want them
Mm-hmm.
to be able to speak in two languages to everyone that is in that community, and to understand the role that culture plays in that. But if we don't find that point where we can really brag about ourselves and elevate
Yes.
ourselves, because there's that difference between, being cocky and kind of full of yourself versus just saying, like, I know who I am, and I'm strong in who I am, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
confident in who I am, and I have something to offer. I have something that I can provide. I have something I can give and gift to a community. And so we need our leaders, we need our students to brag about themselves, to
Mm-hmm.
advocate for themselves, right?
Yes, totally. And believe me, Kelly, it wasn't that easy for me either. I remember at the beginning stages of really seeing myself with, like you're saying, brag about myself, even with myself.
Mhm.
That was even the hardest part. Um, I remember feeling so unworthy,
Mm.
because throughout my life, um, as the Latina, as a woman of color, and I come from where it's rich in tradition and whatnot. We this person from Oklahoma said, you don't do that, because if you do it, you are cocky, you're stuck up, you are this, you are that, and you're like, okay, I better say that no, I'm not good enough, or no, I'm not that good, you're better than me, or things like that. And one of the things that I came to conclude after all these many years, like I'm so old.
We're both really young,
Exactly.
just so everyone
I
out there
sounded
listening knows.
I sounded like the little boy on the talent show who's 5. Throughout my life, my whole life, I've been playing the violin. That's me. I'm barely 25. No, I'm just kidding.
You and me both.
um, I'm like, we need to be, we need to practice, first of all, because whatever it's making us feel ashamed to show off or show up was not something that happened from one day to another. It was gradually seated in us. So same thing with bragging about ourselves. We need to practice. We need to
Mhm.
use different language to communicate with our own selves. And at the beginning, obviously, be okay with feeling uncomfortable bragging about ourselves, to then feel comfortable about it. And one of the words that I've been using for a while now is like, be arrogant, be respectfully arrogant, you know, exaggerate your talent, exaggerate your self worth, exaggerate your value.
'Cause if you're not doing it, there's no one else gonna be doing it for you.
Exactly. And then additionally to that, okay, if we go back to in history, colonization, that had a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
Number that's one thing. And then women, especially up until now, I mean, not too long ago, women had the right to be participating in medical investigations for medicine for women. And he's like, okay, I've been taking all this medicine for women, but it was not necessarily based on a study based on women. It's like, oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not only the immediate environment and stimulus and whatever, but also generational.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like
1,000%. Yes.
broad, and now it's even broader because of
Yes.
social media.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how social media is portraying what is supposed to look like. And don't take me wrong, social media is amazing. It has amazing stuff and whatnot. But for someone else who's still very confused and lost in their identity, it could be una espada de doble filo.
No, que tiene toda la razón. It's definitely a double-edged sword, and it's a very slippery slope, especially for our students. You know, I
Yes.
mean, oh my gosh, I mean, like, uh, I think it was, oh, who was it? Oh, it was, Julia Roberts. She said that she had I just saw this. She had put a post, just a regular post on Facebook or on something of her and her niece playing a game, and she just, was just having coffee, had their hair pulled up, not all, you know, showered and fixed and everything, just having coffee, playing games with their niece, and she said the number of comments that were so mean and so negative about, "Oh, this is how you look," I mean, all this stuff, and she said, "Now, I know who I am. I am confident in who I am, but it still hurt my feelings." She said,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine being a child
Mm-hmm.
and having that
Totally.
child hearing that who doesn't necessarily know who they are yet, who doesn't understand their self-worth, and who is coming from a historical perspective, whether this,
Mm-hmm.
touches their nerve or not. But whenever there has been discrimination, there has been that colonization, there has been women that didn't have the rights that other people had, and there are still systems in place that are set up that oppress people. And it's
Yes.
the reality. I mean, it's true and it just happens. So we got to figure out how do we get our young students to be able to elevate their voice in such a way to allow them to be able to be in that space, to
Mm-hmm.
be respectfully arrogant because they bring so much to the table. And it's time that we stop, listen, lead, and learn together, and then have them be in these positions where they can really set off another trajectory to best serve all of our students.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And not only they have it harder now to go through their puberty years where they're starting to define their identity and where do I belong? How do I want to behave or look like or be or whatever? There is too much out there, too many options that if they don't bring it down to what it is right now and where you are right now in the present, like Mike was saying at the beginning, be in the present moment, which is very important, and it's one of the hardest things to do, especially nowadays with all the stimulus going on. Uh, they they can get lost.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I heard you
definitely.
mention also about that feeling of unworthiness.
Yes.
That is it's a tough pill to swallow, right?
Hmm.
Just because I want you to know, as your friend, your new friend here, you are so
Oh,
worthy.
thank
I know
you.
that you know that now. But we do have students that go through this. We have teachers, we have adults. There's no age limit to these feelings and these
Totally.
emotions. And I think it's something that I have to recognize that, you have to work through daily. There's not one day
Yes.
you wake up and you're like, "Oh, healed, worthy, I'm good." You just move on.
I wish it would have been that easy.
I know, right? Me too. We'd be making a fortune. Um, but,
Exactly.
but the truth is, and the reality is, and I think I mentioned this maybe in this session with you whenever I was in Colorado, but they're speaking about our students again and about our students. I had encouraged leadership to sit down with the students to review their English language acquisition plan and have this conversation about how their bilingualism or multilingualism was a superpower and trying to
Mhm.
change this conversation. So, apart from the requirements of having to take your language assessment, WIDA, TELPAS, whatever anyone has in their state, that apart from that, there's really an opportunity to have a really different conversation to change what multiculturalism and multilingualism looks like. So as the teacher was bringing in the student to first, celebrate their bilingualism, biculturalism, and biliteracy, and I had like a little kind of guide for them to follow through because again, these are monolingual leaders, right? Talking to multilingual students. So
Exactly.
trying to give, because they didn't know like what are the benefits of bilingualism. Well, like
Yes.
beyond helping people and maybe making more money, they don't know what else to say about it. And there's so much more to it than just helping people and making money. There are health benefits, etc. So anyhow, point being is that she took my advice and was bringing in the students to have a conversation with them one on one, to be able to encourage them.
That's
In
awesome.
in the meeting though, she said, "Miss," or the student said, "Miss, I always thought that this was just a test for dumb Mexicans."
Oh my gosh.
The student was in ninth grade.
Wow.
I say it, and I just say exactly what she told me, and it's because you can feel it, right? I feel it already, like this.
Mhm.
Ooh, it's so heavy right now. Um, but that wasn't the intention that the other people necessarily had. But it was a moment where they were able to recognize their unawareness of
Yes.
what they have not been doing, what they have not been saying, to the people that they have not invited to the table, the students they haven't been listening to, the way that they've been talking about, quote unquote, those students and have been doing so much othering for kinder, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth,
Mhm.
seventh, eighth. Finally, I'm in ninth grade. I mean, that is so much time to feel like you are unworthy.
Yes.
She changed the conversation, and it was really an amazing thing that happened is that then she sent me a video of that same student kind of giving the pep talk to the other ninth graders about taking their WIDA access test to really show off their bilingual superpowers and be one step closer to the syllabi literacy. So it
That's
did change.
awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. It changed the conversation, but it really put into perspective for the leaders. And I would like, for you to share about not only what was your feeling of that unworthiness and why did you necessarily feel that way, and then how can we help encourage our students and our teachers and our leaders to ensure that they don't feel that unworthiness, especially our multicultural and linguistically diverse.
First of all, I love that activity because I think both sides of the coin need, to be not to be educated, but that's not the word I'm looking for, but like to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of everybody's talents. And just because both spectrums have been impacted by um, society throughout history, right? And like I was saying in one of the presentations that I recently have, racism, discrimination, stereotypes, and all that, it's not a person, it's a concept that has been going on for many, many centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to go away anytime soon. So, the beauty of it is that when you are aware, then you don't take it that personal. You know it's there. Yes, you acknowledge it. But then, like you did, you help other people on being aware of this is actually what reality looks like, you know. Um, One of the things that I've observed throughout my career in both education and business is that a lot of leaders from, I would say, mostly any ethnic background sometimes lack the process of personal development and really reconnecting with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when that is lacking, from what I've noticed and observed, that's the word. It's really hard to help someone else become aware of something because you are not aware of it yourself. I would. I think I. No, I don't think. I strongly believe. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, dímelo.
I'm not going to be fired again, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, hey, if you not no longer I think, but I strongly believe. Say it.
Exactly. I strongly believe that, especially in education, there is a need in that area of life of reconnecting with your authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
so you can acknowledge, like we were talking before, all of these different dynamics and and people not being aware of things, and hidden beliefs, hidden stereotypes, hidden racism, hidden this and that, and just convert every single comment like this ninth grader did into a teachable learning moment
Mm-hmm.
that is going to bring to fruition a totally different perspective in this future generation.
It's incredibly important for us to elevate the voices of our students, to learn from them, because if we're the ones serving those students, and we already know that there's going to be things that we are unaware of, and so as we're trying to help them get to the path that they want and need to be on, whether that be um, a university degree, whether it be in the workforce, no matter whatever they want to do, but allowing them to be able to get there and us listening to them between what we know what to do. I always say, like, we know accreditation, we know our state standards, we know what we have to do,
I
right?
was going to go there in a minute. I'm like, there are all these requirements.
There's all these requirements. We already know we can check the boxes, we can get that done. But our pedagogical practice, like the art and the science and that level of cultural proficiency to have into our schools, and how we implement that in such a very strategic and uh, I consider
Meaningful.
it to be an incredibly meaningful and important way. I feel like, and I say this often, and I had read it in the literature doing my research, but I love this phrase of, like, it's a moral imperative. It's a
Yes,
moral imperative that we do this. And if we do not allow the space for our students to be our professors, to teach us, then we can't really be a servant leader. We can't really create that space, because all I'm
exactly.
doing is how I did it last year, in essence.
Exactly.
And
And
I don't
it
think last
goes,
year is
and
always
it
better.
goes
Yeah. Go next, next,
awesome.
next year.
I love that. And it goes, I think, through all the levels in education, from
Mhm.
the superintendent or whoever is above that person all the way to the student and vice versa,
And
including the parents.
yeah, and definitely including the parents. But I feel like sometimes so much, and this is, I mean, this is just general speaking. So all the listeners out there, I mean, there are superheroes that are true examples of what I believe we need to
Amazing.
see, more of. But in my own personal experiences, so I can only speak to those. The leadership is more focused on the managerial side of things than they are on
The
service.
actual person.
The actual person, the human side of all of this, and
Mhm,
recognizing individual people, the ones that your teachers, your parents, the most important stakeholders, your students,
mhm.
and but even being in that level of the superintendent role, and knowing that the superintendent role obviously requires a lot of different leadership activities, right? But
Right.
you are still the instructional leader of that district. You are still the person who allows the space, the exposure, the opportunities, and the availability
Yes.
for these conversations to happen. And so the more that we can really help and support our leaders in recognizing maybe their unawareness, then we can make different decisions when it comes to how we do budgets, to how we use
Yes.
Title III funding, to how we use bilingual funding, to how we appropriate this, to how we consider what our master schedule looks like, what classes we can offer, how it includes cultures, because we can still meet the standards and we can still get accreditation. How am
Exactly.
I doing this in such a way to be of service for the community where I have chosen to work and they did not choose to necessarily go to school there? How do I help benefit the community at large? Because that school district is the heartbeat of the community.
Totally. 1000%.
That's
I
my two
mean,
cents.
and the I think you're elected, Kelly. No, I'm just kidding.
Vote por Kelito. Funny. I'll vote for you too, Susie.
Thank you. um, you know, putting all that into place is actually more powerful and more inspiring for everybody involved in the education of our generations. either past or future or whatever, that you don't, that it comes to a place like you're saying where you don't have to worry about meeting the standards because you know that's going to happen
Organically,
automatically.
naturally, by default, it'll happen.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I just want to add something really quick
Yeah.
to all the teachers out there. Keep up on doing your amazing job. From experience of 20 plus years myself, I know that even though you are technically confined in that classroom with either 15 to 30 amazing human beings, a lot of them are going to remember you because you changed their lives, either in kinder, first, second, all the way through whatever you're teaching. Keep up doing your amazing job. And even though you don't feel worthy or being worth or being valued mainly or listened to, still please do your job
Mm-hmm.
because you are such an important piece and person in our society, more, I would say, than anybody else, especially the elementary years.
Yeah, I am. I'm so glad that you say that, and I, at the same in the same vein, I also want to say thank you so much to all of our leaders out there, all of the teachers. But I want to do a special shout out to the ones that in whomever's listening, whomever's out there, you know this, to the ones that go above and beyond, to the
Yes.
ones that have the hard conversation, to the one who knows that this is going to ruffle some feathers whenever I pose this question. This is going to be a difficult, hard conversation, but you're doing it in the best interest of students because you have seen a system in
Mhm.
place that was either systematically or systemically not doing what is best to be of service for the community at large and to your students. And so, for all of those leaders and educators out there who go that extra mile, who create that ecosystem, who ask the hard questions and ensure culturally proficient practices and that they are getting rid of destructive practices, thank you so much for institutionalizing cultural knowledge in such a way that impacts the lives and the legacies of our students.
Absolutely. I call those, just like me, secretly or secretive rule breakers.
Yes, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, just, a little bit of monitoring is not too bad. Once in a while, you gotta, like, shake it up a little bit. And it's the truth. And if we're gonna talk the talk, then by golly, you better walk the walk.
Yes,
Mhm. Yes,
absolutely.
uh-huh. And it's not for us, it's for
It's
them.
for the kids,
And
always.
again, whenever it's through that lens of gratitude, it always feels so much better, and it's actually really easy to do.
That's true. It just becomes second nature.
Now, Susie,
Yes.
before we sign off of here, I really want to give you just so much of myself when I just say like thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because you're sharing so much. You've gone through so many life experiences that have really made you stop and think and reflect and probably close your eyes and really listen just to your inner self. And you got rid of so many labels. You are a visionary. You've done so much for students. You've helped them see themselves in spaces where they didn't think they could before, and you really are an example of the change that we want to see in the world. And I'm just so glad that I got to meet you on that one day that I didn't know was going to be a day that would ultimately impact me and change my life for the better. So if you're doing that with me with just a short time, I can't imagine what that looks like for all of the other amazing people who get to be around you, and most specifically, any students that get to be around you. But is there anything that you would like to share with any of our listeners out there, whether they be in the pre-K through 12 education field, university sector, or even beyond in any corporation, perhaps? Anything that you want to share in this moment with them?
I want to say I take all of those words to the heart and use them for the rest of the year in my life to feel cheered up and worthy. Yay! And
Yes, there
respectfully
it
arrogant.
is. Respectfully arrogant. I'm going to use that. I'm going to make a T-shirt.
On continuous service in my community, our youth and whatnot. So thank you so much for having me here. Just, I know it's tough. I know it's hard, especially for all the different factors being involved in our education world.
Mm-hmm.
But continue. Don't lose hope. Keep your hope, your faith, your dedication, your passion intact. So you are showing up for every single one of those lives with a smile.
I think you're an incredible example of anyone can overcome any obstacle, and they can still be incredibly successful. I just truly, you're a huge inspiration, and I am
Thank
just filled
you.
with gratitude to have you here, and to be not only just a guest on Cultural Connections Lab, but more importantly, a new friend in my life. So, gracias por eso, de verdad.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so
That
glad. And
goes to
let's
my heart, and I appreciate everything, everything. Um, and me he ganado un amigo o dos aquí con el mic. So,
Exacto, exacto. Hey, and uh, just so everyone knows who's listening, we will have the link to your website that will be in the description for this podcast episode. But in case anyone is interested, it is susistrategist.com. Again, that's susistrategist.com. And that's where you can find some more information about our amazing guest, Miss Suzie Mosqueda. Is there any other place where they can find you? Or is that the best way?
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find
All
me
right.
there too with Suzie Mosqueda, SUZEMOSQUEDA, and you can find me on Instagram as well. Yeah. And
Excellent. We
let's
will make sure.
continue impacting lives.
Yes, exactly.
Yay!
And
Because
you and I, let's continue this conversation as well. And then we'll I know through our conversations we will come up with another great topic to discuss, and we'll come back for a round two.
absolutely, I would love to. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Let's do it. Well, thank you so much to all the listeners out there. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I hope that you were able to take something from this conversation and you can apply it in a positive way in your lives. A big shout out to our producer, Mike Overholt. Thank you for all that you do to help us sound good in Cultural Connections Lab. Thank you to EduSkills, our sponsor for this podcast. And most importantly, thank you to all the listeners for spending your time with us today. I hope you have a great day. And for everyone, enjoy, have love, live, and laugh as much as you can. All right. See you guys later next time, and adios.
Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Adios.